Morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Morning, good morning. Or everyone just doing an audio check. Can you guys hear me all right? Great. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes, guys.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, Steven, how are you?
Hey, pretty good. How are you?
So far, so good.
Awesome. Guys?
So we'll get started here shortly. I just have a very tiny starter on bull short at 55.90. Obviously, we'll explain that as we get started here, but just something small. Another crazy week in the markets upon us. So we'll get started here shortly, guys. Morning, morning. Hope everyone's doing good today. All right, guys, let's get started here. So, more everyone, welcome back to live trading. If this is your first time on live trading, welcome. We use the webinars channel in Slack to communicate. So, we do a live stream every day. We talk about pre-market action, what's working, what's not working, talk about the overall market, build a watch list live, and then we start trading live at 9:30 a.m. So for everyone watching on YouTube, we usually cut off the stream at 9:29 a.m. and start trading at 9:30. So let's get started with the overall market. So it's been kind of a really choppy and really tough market. Now, I haven't really been as active in this market because this is not really where I excel. This is not my style of market. This is not my style of trading. So for me, the hardest part is knowing when to step on the gas and knowing when to step on the brakes. So when I see the market is moving based on headlines, when I'm seeing random stocks jump up and down and there's no kind of clear linear action, that's not the cycle that I thrive in. It's the cycle that I struggle in. So I've been sizing down. I haven't really been placing too many trades, and I pretty much just been waiting for stocks to come to me. So this morning we got news that Trump is going to expedite any type of licenses or whatever that NVIDIA needs because they're building a $500 billion factory in America, and the stock sold off on it. So my thought process is I think the markets are probably going to be very choppy until we get some sort of China deal or until we get these large cap earnings out of the way. So tomorrow is going to start the technology earnings. We already had JP Morgan reporting yesterday. We have Bank of America reporting today. But tomorrow's Netflix. So Netflix usually leads the tech sector. So tomorrow's going to be a very, very important day to see what the theme of this all is going to be. Because if all these tech companies start reporting shitty earnings and the market's already hanging on by a thread, we may be in a situation where things go a lot lower, a lot faster, right? So that's just something to keep in mind for tomorrow. Let's talk about Bull. So Bull was Webull. This is a new IPO that just kind of ran up like crazy. If you guys remember, Newsmax was another IPO that kind of went a little bit nuts. It went from $20 to $290. So I think that a lot of traders were hoping that this Webull does the same thing, goes from 1020 up to 120, and it did go pretty freaking insane. Bull went as high as 80, which is pretty nuts. It kind of came back down this morning. So I do have a small starter on this Bull on the short side. And what I'm looking for is, if you look on Newsmax, right? If you look at Newsmax, the day that it finally collapsed, it collapsed on a gap down. So a gap down, washed out, and that bounce was the only bounce it got all day, and it ended up going from 170 to $50 in one day. So what is that? That's like 50. That's like down 70% in a day. So I don't know if Bull is going to go down 70% in a day, but if it does, it's going to go down to about $20. So I don't think it's going to go that low, but I definitely want to have a starter position on this Bull, and that's kind of what I did at 55.90. Just a couple hundred shares. Ideally looking for a bounce towards that red to green area to add. So that's kind of my overall thought process. I think that everyone is thinking that this Bull is going to be the same as Newsmax, and obviously it's not. Who knows? It might still bounce. It might still go crazy, but at least in the short term, it does seem like it topped out. So that's the thought on Bull. Aside from that, like I said, a lot of news regarding America, China, this, that. I do not think the market is going to find any sort of kind of consolidation action until we get some sort of positive headlines from China or until we get some tech earnings that are good. So overall, we're kind of in the middle of the range in the markets, kind of just waiting for more info, waiting for more action to see, what happens. It's been really slow for me, guys. I've been kind of frustrated because, coming off some really, really amazing starts to the year. Like if you look here, let me pull up my calendar. So January, I started off with a $73,000 month. February, I went to a $182,000 month. And then March, $25,000. And April, $12,000. So profits have been kind of dwindling simply because the market cycle is really, really difficult right now. It's really, really tough to size up. It's really, really tough to be patient. It's really, really tough. And while the market conditions are tough, I just want to try to stay alive. So I've been feeling a little bit discouraged lately in my trading. And that's kind of, I guess that's not an accurate way to judge it because I am sticking to the process. I am following the rules, but I obviously want to make more money, right? It's just the same thing that we always talk about. It's greed, it's human emotion, it's all this stuff. So I'm trying to train my brain to be a little bit more optimistic and a lot more positive, and understand that this is just a cycle. This is just a cycle. There's cycles of feast and there's cycles of famine. We started off the first quarter of the year with the biggest feasts ever, and now there's a little bit of famine. So during these times, it's very easy to convince yourself to start deviating. It's very easy during these times to start thinking, maybe I'll just trade some Bitcoin. Maybe I'll just trade some options. Maybe I'll just trade some this, that, the other thing. So every day I'm trying to fight those demons of telling me to go to the next shiny object simply for the sake of making more money. But as you guys know, if you've been trading for long enough, that's a fallacy. Every time you go for the shiny object, you get your ass kicked, right? So I'm just trying to just stay mentally strong. That's it. So maybe you guys are not dealing with this. Maybe you guys are trading well, or maybe you're in a little bit of a slump. Either way, just know that this is all part of the process. I like making money just as much as anyone else. I like trading well just as much as anyone else. But if the opportunities are not there, if the setups are not there, then I can't force it, right? So that's kind of my overall thoughts on everything so far. So let's get into building the watch list, and then we'll get to questions. So the way that we build the watch list is we always go to the previous day's watch list first and build from there. So let's start. So MSPR. So MSPR looked like it just kind of rebounded on low volume. So nothing really too interesting there. AREB, I'm mentioning that there's not really an edge on this stock. Yeah, it pops and drops. One of these days it's gonna probably start to go crazy, so not really interested there. XAGE ended up breaking that 25 key support, and ended up breaking that key support and ended up just tanking all the way down. So nothing really there. Not really good at these penny stocks. Bull. So Bull, like I said, is my top watch. This is turning into the Newsmax style trade. So if you look at Bull over here, I have a starter around 56. So basically my plan on Bull is Bull. Everyone thinks this is the next Newsmax squeeze. If you remember the day that Newsmax faded, it gapped down, it sold off 70% in a day. I'm not sure if Bull will do the same, but I would be happy with a 50% fade. So watching all bounces to short. If they continue to act weak. So like I said, guys, if you remember the day on Newsmax that it ended up failing, it failed on a gap down and sell-off day. It was this day, it gapped down and sold off literally 70% in a day. So Bull is gapping down. Do I think it's going to sell off 70% in a day? I don't think so. Would it sell off 50% in a day? Maybe. So kind of watching this Bull pretty much for a fader. So just have a small starter, like I said. What else? Let's see what's moving today. SBEV. SBEV ended up pushing and failing. I think that if we get a nice bounce on this, maybe 250, 260, and 280 to short. So SBEV, 250, 260, 280 lines to short. SNYR, I think probably towards $5. So if we have bounce towards $5 in the morning, 550. SNYR looking for a bounce toward 550 to short. If this just breaks down, key support is 360. Break down under key support of 360. I will look for bounces to VWAP to short. ENSC kind of pulled back down, so nothing really there. MTVA maybe it bounced towards VWAP, so maybe 220, 240, and 260. MTVA 220, 240, 260 lines to short. Mura, easy to borrow, so not really seeing much edge here. I do see key support around 180, so Mura, I see key support around 180. So ideally that has to break down, and then we'll look to short bounces. AREB squeezing up, but like I said, not really interested there. USAR, day 2 runner, no real edge there, so we're gonna ignore it. USAR, no edge, ignoring it. VERV. This one's still kind of trending higher, so I don't really see much of an edge here. It's just kind of still trending up. It has not broken down. It's at the top of the range, so not really that interested there. And that's pretty much it. So that's how I make the watch list. So I usually like to keep it short and sweet. This is how I keep such a high win rate in the market, is I don't overtrade, I don't oversize. Well, sometimes I oversize for sure, but I don't like to try to put every single stock that's moving in the market on the watch list, because what the hell is that? I like to narrow it down to the things that I think have the highest probability and the highest edge and trade those. So yeah, a couple questions here before I pass it over to Steven. So questions. Hey Alex, aside from the news and action in large caps, I remember last year you said April is typically your worst month. Any reason why that is annually? So actually, I think Andrew nailed it. So obviously, as you guys know, today is tax day. Today is tax day, and today is James's birthday. What a shitty ass day to have a birthday, dude. What a shitty ass day to have a birthday. So
That's terrible.
the blessing and the curse of taxes is that if you make money, great, you pay taxes. You know, if you don't make money, then you don't really have to pay taxes. Unfortunately, it's a good thing, but I make a lot of money trading. So every year, I pretty much have to send the government a check for a Bugatti. For like the last 3-4 years, I've been sending them a Bugatti, and seeing millions of dollars just literally disappear from your account for sending it to Ukraine or whatever the hell it may be, just really bothers me. So what ends up happening is in April, I feel like all this FOMO that I have to make the money back. It's like a losing trade, right? You start revenge trading. So historically, April, I've been revenge trading because of all these taxes and all that stuff. So I think that's the reason why. And I still struggle with it to this day, right? So with about 10 minutes, I'm going to pass it over to Steven. And Steven, I'll let you take it from here, bro.
Sure thing. So lately, kind of piggybacking off of what Alex was just talking about, lately, depending on your setups and your style, but things have generally been slow, definitely for me. I know for a lot of you. So days like yesterday, I didn't trade. There were 2 or 3 days last week, I also didn't trade. But just in general lately, there hasn't been a lot of action that fits what I typically look for. So one thing that I'm reminded of, when I was newer to trading, on days like yesterday, I would really, and I think a lot of you could relate to this, maybe now or when you were newer, but I used to kind of look for trades. My plans aren't really hitting. What else is out there? I see Bao nailing everything. I see, whoever else in main chat nailing everything. So I started looking for trades that don't necessarily fit what I would normally look for, right? And what would happen is, I mean, sometimes it can work, but a lot of times it wouldn't work. So what would happen is it wouldn't work out, and then I would have like a bad red day, and then I'd be all burnt out and spunt, and then the next day, all these opportunities would come, but I wouldn't be prepared for them, right? I would have whatever taken the day off, or I would not be mentally up for it. So it kind of sucks, like watching your bread and butter happen, and then you can't capitalize on it because you were busy trading tickers that you wouldn't normally trade, right? So yeah, I think a lot of you could relate to that. So today I just kind of want to touch on preserving your mental and financial capital. So here's some notes I have on this. Feel free to chime in with any of your experiences, or if you have any questions, and then once I get through this, I will try to go through them. So if the market is slow or your setups aren't hitting, like lately for myself and like for a lot of you guys, don't force outside of your plans. Instead, you can do a lot of things. You can review your previous trades, hit the MIC library, just take the day off. There's a running joke in main chat, I think it came from Bao, but he would just look on Amazon and shop, and he'd say, oh, I save a lot more money on Amazon shopping than I would, if I lost trading outside of my plan, right? Forcing trades. So yeah, it's key to know that we don't need to trade every day. Save your mental capital for better opportunities. Other ways to preserve your mental capital: creating your plans, ignoring the rest. Obviously, we touched on that a lot. Accepting your stops, not adding to losers or changing your bias if it goes against you. I don't know about you guys, but when I was new, so this is why I generally don't long, right? Because when I was newer, and I know my tabs know exactly what I was talking about. I won't mention their names, but I've had 2 tabs since like day one. And man, when we were new, so we would short, okay, I'll just say I would short, right? And let's say, the thing like kept running and it blew through my stop. So what would I do? I would go long, right? So then I'm long, and then the freaking thing would death candle right away, back to my original idea. Bro, I know it's happened to you, bro. Like it's happened to everybody, right? So the thing death candle is right, like, straight down under my original lines. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm an idiot for going long. I should have stayed short. So what do, guys? I go short again. Freaking thing just snaps back up.
Yeah, Steven goes short, and then a press release comes out that Warren Buffett bought the company, right?
Yeah, like it was crazy. And I swear, man, and I know my tab, if they're listening to this, they're going to laugh right now. My tabs from day one. So I would be like, man, I would tell my tabs, it's like, is everything colluding against me, or what's going on here? This is the craziest thing. Like I would change bias 2, 3, 4 times, and every time I was wrong. So I'm just like, yeah, Clayton. So like, I learned pretty quick, it didn't take me long to figure that out. Even if I think my bias is totally off, this should have been a long trade, whatever, I just don't switch. I just don't switch bias. So if I was short, it didn't work out, let the longs have it, you guys go for it. It's not for me, right? So anyways, that's kind of a, funny lesson I think a lot of you could probably relate to. So that's why I don't personally switch bias in the middle of a trade. Yeah. So the next one is something that Alex has preached, from day one, and I've followed it pretty well. It works really well. I've done this since I was new. Any day that I would have a red day, the next day I would come in like size down. I would just size down to like half. Generally, I think, it seems like it, I bet like 100% this way. I think it's because like, there's less emotions. We're sized in so small. Our trades have a little more room to work. So sizing down after red day really keeps my streaks, my losing streaks, my drawdown to a minimum. I never really got in a situation where I would have red day, red day, red day, red day. Knock on wood, right? And I think I credit a lot of that to sizing down. If, for instance, you take a red trade, it just doesn't work out, maybe something's wrong, just the market's not favoring your style. So sizing down in general for a couple of days, whatever, usually ended up being the best game plan. And it makes a lot of sense in theory because, when the market doesn't favor us, then, that's time to hit the brakes a little bit. So sizing down after red day has always done very well for me, and it's a rule I still follow today, and I learned that from Alex. Finally, when you preserve your minimum capital, you're better prepared for the next opportunity. So it's kind of like I touched on at the beginning. You know, if for example I were new yesterday, I forced a bunch of trades. Who knows what's going to happen today? Maybe like there will be an awesome trade for me somewhere, maybe not. But what I would do is, you know, obviously come in the next day, not ready to trade or whatever the case was, or my psychology was all negative. It just didn't work out well. So preserving your mental capital and waiting for the next opportunity is always the best way to go. So we've got a couple minutes. Let me see if you guys have any questions or if there's anything else I could touch on. Phil, wasted mental capital, absolutely a big one. David, yep, I think we've all been there. Steven, indicator on steroids, yep. If you guys ever see me like short and then long and then short, just like send me a DM. Something is really wrong. I will never do that again. I mean, I learned my lesson. And I think it happened to me like, I don't know, it happened to me for a couple months when I was brand new before it stuck in my head. So I will never do that again. David, that's why having a plan while you are not emotional is crucial. So absolutely. So we make our plans before we're in the trade. Once you're in the trade, you make really bad decisions. Put it this way, I never decided that I'm going to go long if it breaks this stop and then I'm going to short again. I never decided that before the trade, you know, started, right? I decided that when I was emotional and everything was going against me. So anyways, Lisa, what I was frustrated with last week was I wanted to buy options at QQ SPY. I talked to my financial advisor a week prior. Yeah, I remember you telling this story, Lisa. In the day I wanted to trade right before the market opened. Oh, you can't trade options. Yeah, that sucks. And that'll give you definitely FOMO. Carlos, I'm starting to do that now. I'm over PUT going long and short, not sure if I'm over trading. So Carlos, I would say, I would say not to do that, first of all, but I would say, or do it with tiny size until you see if it's working. But I'd say if it's not working out, just stop doing it, man, because really, it gets really taxing emotionally and on your mental capital. But, you know, just do it really tiny if you want to test it out or paper trade it. Cool. So that's it for me. We got a couple minutes left. I'll pass it back over to you, Alex. Thanks.
Yep. Bull down so far about $6 a share for my entry. So that's pretty good. But I don't want to just stick with a starter here. I obviously want to add to the winner. So far that same thought of comparing it to the Newsmax fading day is very, very accurate. So hopefully we get a nice bounce on this to short. Already built about $6 worth of padding, so feeling comfortable there. Aside from that, very, very clear Mira is the hot stock of the day. So not really interested in fighting that. I will just monitor it for the money flow. And aside from that, guys, we're about to get started trading here in about a minute. If you want to join live trading or if you have any questions, just send Steven an email, stevenrh1@myinvestingclub.com. And that's pretty much it, guys. So let's get started here trading in the next 30 seconds.